Man, why you acting like you so surprised, man? You raised Roller. You wrote the blueprint for his moves, man. Why wouldn't he want to take out the boss? It's the same shit you did to Breeze.
So this right here, I would say this is actually like a plot hole, in my opinion, from the original Power, of when Kanan gets out of prison, and that's when he starts to like plan his way of, killing Ghost and taking over his operation. And the way when he came over to like Ghost's, apartment, and he was like, well, how you killed Breeze, and how you had to like ascend your way over to the top, and you have to like do things that you don't want to do, and you have to look out for the people that's really close to you. And the way that they had that conversation, and it's the way that they both looked at each other, and you can say that this was actually like a plot hole that Ghost should have immediately knew that Kanan was going to come after him. And throughout the entirety of Power, and in raising Kanan, it's like, how is it that Ghost didn't anticipate Kanan coming after him? Why did he just assume that Kanan was actually stupid, and Kanan would have never came after him, knowing that Kanan was the one that taught both him and Tommy the game, and also Breeze as well? Like, how did he not anticipate Kanan, going after him and getting revenge? Like, he just figured that Kanan would just agree, or just went along with the whole, okay, he gets arrested and gets put away on some trumped up charges, when in reality it was really Ghost that really put him in prison. Now, the interesting take, I would say, is that even though it was really Ghost's plan to like put Kanan in prison, but again, what if there was more to the story that was being led on of, Kanan being put in prison? But I think that with everything that they've given us in the original Power, I think that this should have been settled quickly, rather than it being the way that it was given to us. Because again, it's like, if we've been given like this backstory of Kanan and how he is as a character, and the stuff that he had to deal with, the manipulations and the struggles that he had to deal with, and then him becoming like ruthless in the future, and him taking over the streets alongside with Breeze, it's like, you would think that Kanan would have been very wary of Ghost, and even probably would have tried to kill Ghost in the past. And that's another plot hole that we're gonna get to see in Power Origins as well, that did trickle over to like Power itself, because the biggest plot hole is the betrayal in the first place, as to when Ghost betrayed Breeze and he killed Breeze in his own apartment. It's like, okay, why didn't Kanan clip Ghost right there if he knew what Ghost was actually doing? If Ghost was taking out the people that was in his way of what he wanted to do, how come Kanan didn't take out the Ghost right then and there? I mean, he would have had to probably kill Tommy too, but that was like a big plot hole right there. Like, I guess you can say too that, yeah, Ghost was his biggest earner. Yeah, he probably was making him a lot of money, sure, but he could have maybe manipulated Tommy. He could have used anybody else, because Kanan was very well connected in the streets and was feared in the streets. So he could have used maybe anybody to probably like replace Ghost. Like, yeah, obviously Tommy, but it could have been maybe somebody else as well to have replaced the Ghost if Ghost was like his best earner. But again, that was like the big plot hole as to why Kanan didn't kill Ghost, and as to why Kanan, just allowed things to happen the way it did, rather than him killing, Ghost right then and there, and then leading over to the original Power as to why Ghost didn't have Kanan killed immediately, and to just to go off as to, oh, it was really Roller that really was turning on Ghost, rather than it being like Kanan. And the way that they set it up, as if it was like a very strategic plan and nobody really knew, but it was obviously like right there. Like, it's like Ghost never really thought about it. So that's like a plot hole that I would say that was in the original Power, but it starts off in Raising Kanan, because I'm pretty sure we're going to get to see young Ghost and Tommy like towards the ending of Raising Kanan, which is going to like lead probably over to like Power Origins or so. But it's like that's where the plot hole really starts off, is like in the past, because it's like anybody who works for a person or works with a person wouldn't just go along with, well, I mean, he had to go anyway, because everybody had their own stories of Breeze, where Tommy had his side of his story to Breeze. Kanan explained about, him being strong, but he was lacking in areas. And then Ghost remembers Breeze as in his way of, he loved Breeze, but he was just in the way of his future. But it just goes back to the whole, it was right there. Everybody knew it was like right then and there. Like, it wasn't like the math was there. Basically, like, the math was really there, and everything just led up to Kanan, and all eyes were still on Kanan, that he was the one pulling the strings rather than it being Rolla. And even though Ghost loved Rolla, but Rolla wasn't smart enough to have Reese get stabbed, having a person in pink sneakers do it, like all of the little tricks and trades that Kanan taught Ghost, you would think that Ghost would have learned a bit of things that Kanan would have taught him and been like, wait a minute, I feel like I've seen some of these moves before. I feel like I may know what this is all about, and that it's plain obvious that it's really Kanan the one that's, doing all these things. Because I talked about a big mistake of how Kanan should have really went after like Angela, and I feel like that was also like a big plot hole, and it was also like a mistake that Kanan should have went after rather than it being Tasha. But we understand why Kanan was really, had a thing for Tasha, was because he liked the Tasha too, and he wanted to do things to Tasha as well. But Ghost's real love was really Angela, and I think that too should have also played a factor as well. Like, well, if he loved Angela, then he probably could have gotten his revenge early. He probably could have killed Angela maybe before she like leaves and she goes off into like law enforcement, right, and becomes like a district attorney, or involved in law enforcement. But I think that if he would have killed her in the past, then things would have not played out so well for Ghost, maybe into the future, because he still would have been with Tasha rather than it being Angela. But again, all of the things kind of like led up into the past of what both Kanan and Ghost should have really done. But I think that, like I said before, like the plot hole was that Kanan didn't really handle Ghost the way that he should have handled him, knowing that he killed Breeze and not thinking that maybe he's going to be next as well. Because I'm pretty sure that in Power Origins that there will be some sort of like thing between them two, like, okay, like, you killed Breeze, why did you do it? And then that was pretty much it. But Kanan never really thought that nothing was going to happen to him. He probably thought that maybe Ghost was going to kill him, but he should have knew that Ghost would have done something to him, knowing that everybody who did betray him and the people that was closest to him that actually betrayed him. So again, you can see that as a plot hole as to why Kanan should have killed Ghost at an earlier point, and then he probably would have been the one in control of like New York City with with Lobos, and then maybe the Serbs. Like, he could have had control earlier at a certain point, but it would have not maybe lasted too long, because the law enforcement probably would have caught on to what was going on. So I think at some point in time, Kanan would have got roped up. Kanan and Tommy, for that matter, would have got roped up into the whole Lobos thing. If not the Lobos thing, then it could have been the Jimenez thing. But I think Kanan would have done well for himself, but I think he probably could have got caught at some point in time. But again, like I said, I think, in my opinion, Kanan was like the big plot hole in Power, right? That even though, like I said, we're gonna get Origins and they're gonna tell us like a great story, but Kanan was really the plot hole. We understand his character, we feel for his character, but he was a plot hole to the story of Power as to why certain things should have happened the way that it did, either it being Kanan killing Ghost at an earlier point in his time, or Ghost killing Kanan at an earlier point when he was at the rise. Like, he could have killed Kanan in prison. He could have done something where Kanan could have stabbed up Kanan in prison. He could have done something, even though Kanan is he's a good fighter, and he would have done well for himself in prison. Not saying that Kanan wouldn't go down without a fight. He's a good fighter, but it's just that Ghost could have probably tried a couple of hits or attempts to try to maybe like have Kanan killed, or fuck it, he could have had a car bomb or some shit and blew up Kanan's car and killed him that way. There was multiple ways that Ghost could have gotten rid of Kanan. The biggest plot hole I think that was in Power as a whole would have been Kanan and getting rid of him at a certain point. But like I said, you could arguably say that the story goes either way of killing Ghost at an earlier point in their time, or having Ghost kill Kanan at an earlier point in his time, and then the rising success of Ghost would have went well without having too much problems. Maybe the only big problem would have been Tasha. Tasha would have been the only problem. That would have been it. But other than that, I think another reason why probably maybe Ghost didn't want to kill Kanan as well is because of maybe Jukebox. Because seeing how Jukebox is, we will get to see more of this bloodthirsty, crazed out Jukebox that's, in my opinion, I think it's probably out there killing women and children. And I think another reason why maybe Ghost didn't want to kill Kanan was probably because of how crazy Jukebox is. So I think the best alternative for Kanan was to send him to prison. That's what I think. But I will still stand by my guns and say that Kanan was a plot hole to the story. Even though, we got a great story, an origin story for him, and it's great with Rock and all these characters that we've gotten. But he was the plot hole to Power, in my opinion. But let me know in the comment section down below, like, what do you guys think of my idea and my topic here of Kanan actually being like a big plot hole to Power as a whole, when it comes down to like the Ghost character and the story itself, of it being like, yeah, it made sense to a degree, but it sort of didn't if Kanan knew that Ghost killed Breeze and that he was next, and you would think that he probably should have handled Ghost at a certain point rather than just letting it go, knowing that he probably would have maybe died by Ghost, but instead he gets sent to prison for 10 plus years, and knowing that he could have had the streets and he could have done more, but Ghost took all of that away from him, and he took Sean away from him as well. So that's what I would probably say here. But as always, like, comment, subscribe, and share, and I will catch you all in the next one.